The Ouroboros Cycle, one of the biggest, most legendary series of entries in the history of the SCP Foundation. We've covered the events of this SCP-001 epic in 6 videos, which we definitely recommend you watch before this one to avoid your brain exploding from the sheer scope of it all. Because that's the thing about the Ouroboros Cycle. It's a story so big, sprawling, and dense that it can feel almost like an anomaly itself. Whether you're immersed in the possible origin of the broken god, the sentient black hole that can destroy the whole universe, or Calvin Lucian's quest to assassinate the O5 Council, it can sometimes be difficult to see the forest from the trees. But worry not, because that's exactly why we're here today. We're going to step back and look at this anomalous odyssey as a whole and ask the big question, why is it all here together? What makes these 4 different storylines, the children, the broken god, Atonement, and the way it ends, one big cycle? As with anything involving the SCP Foundation, there's always going to be an element of personal interpretation. But now that we've gone through the whole cycle, we think it's worth adding our 2 cents to the proceedings. So let's start broad. A question you've probably been wondering is, what do the words Ouroboros Cycle actually mean? And what is their significance to the 4 stories within? While the spelling can differ, Ouroboros refers to the ancient symbol of a snake or dragon eating its own tail, forming a circle, a direct connection to the concept of cycles. The Ouroboros symbol has existed in a huge number of cultures, from the ancient Egyptians to the ancient Greeks to modern Gnostic traditions. It's often used in alchemy or other magical practices and has a variety of meanings such as eternal life, the endless cycle of death and rebirth, and the cycle of renewal. Anyone familiar with the tales within the Ouroboros cycle is probably already noticing some similarities. Cycles are a common theme in all of these works. People endlessly repeat mistakes, threats thought to be contained or destroyed return, and oftentimes, those who go out on a quest to destroy something end up becoming what they wish to destroy in the first place. In a cycle, there is no true end and no true beginning. Everything repeats endlessly. But let's start at the closest thing to the beginning we have: the children. In this tale, the Foundation faces off against a terrifying reality-warping group of interests known as the Kingdom of Abaddon. This nasty group, which came from the Sahara Desert, could seemingly take anything the Foundation threw at them, and were able to straight-up vaporize anyone who got too close. If the Kingdom was able to amass enough power, it could spell the end of the Foundation, and even the subjugation of the human race. Enter O5-1, a reoccurring character in the Ouroboros Cycle. This outside-the-box thinker put all his chips on the Twins of God project, designated SCP-001, like many anomalies before and after it. This project would infuse a human being with godlike powers, but it was a power so great that it seemed to kill anyone who attempted to accept it. Needless to say, this was a major bummer for O5-1. But through relentless human experimentation, even sacrificing the population of entire towns to the project, he eventually came up with a solution. A horrifying solution, but a solution nonetheless. He found that a group of 9 children, with ages varying from 4 to 11, could act as a human conduit for 001's power, and as a result, it could be a weapon capable of turning the tide against the Kingdom of Abaddon. During the testing phase, though, it seemed like O5-1 went a little mad with power. He vaporized an entire church of the Broken God place of worship, and used the power of the children to wipe a few others off the map at his own discretion. His abuses of power got so flagrant that the administrator himself was called in to get a handle on the situation. And surprise, surprise, 05-1 disintegrated him too, before disappearing himself shortly afterwards. In the end, the children were deemed too dangerous to be practical, both because of their anomalous powers and from the level of ambient radiation they put out. All 9 were locked in radiation-proof boxes and buried in the desert, though they each show signs of life to this day. While this may seem disconnected from the rest of the series, it actually establishes some of the most important reoccurring themes and ideas of the cycle as a whole. Namely, the Foundation messing with reality and performing horrific acts to achieve their goals, the corruption of the O5 Council, and the fact that these grand attempts to change or save the world often blow up in everyone's faces, sometimes literally. We also have the introduction and apparent death of the mysterious administrator. But trust us, all is not what it seems with this one. The ripple effect beginning here will affect everything going forward. Next, the Broken God. This tells the chaotic story of a magical clockwork box which is worshipped by the Church of the Broken God as a conduit to their deity, and eventually becomes an all-devouring mechanical kaiju. The beast, soon dubbed SCP-001, devoured and consumed all the metal around it, slowly becoming larger and more destructive. If the Foundation didn't take it out before it reached critical mass, they'd be going toe-to-toe with a bona fide god, a fight they really weren't sure they could win. Thankfully, and with a little anomalous help from SCP-2399, the Foundation was able to destroy the anomaly. They removed its clockwork heart from the wreckage and contained the anomalous scrap that once comprised its destructive body. However, the Foundation soon realized that you just can't keep a good god down. The clockwork heart eventually evaded Foundation containment while being shipped to a secondary location, and instead ended up in a small town. Here it began to influence the minds of the residents into more subservient broken god cultists, intent on building him back up to his former glory. It'd be easy to discount the broken god as an outlier, seeing as the Foundation came out looking much better here than they do in any of the other Ouroboros tales. But when you look carefully, its place in the overall cycle is clear. The entry ends the way it begins, with the heart of the broken god influencing humans to carry out its bidding. The Foundation had to intervene in between these two instances, but in the end there was no net loss to the broken god itself. In a sense, the Foundation is doomed to encounter the same problems again and again, continually defending the world from the same anomalous threats. And the Foundation needs to succeed every time to maintain peace and normality. A major anomalous threat only needs to succeed once to drag everything into disarray. In many ways, that is the curse of the SCP Foundation. Speaking of major anomalous threats, now it's time for part 3 of the Ouroboros Cycle, Atonement. Once again, we start off with the Foundation meddling with cosmic scale powers with the creation of the Area 11 Pietrical Fontaine Spatial Stabilization Array. Try saying that 3 times fast. That was a machine so powerful, it was capable of creating a singularity, though what it actually ended up doing was turning Dr. Calvin Desmet into an abomination. More specifically, into a kind of immensely powerful humanoid black hole, whose powers were only restrained by the very machine that created him. Think of him as kind of a malicious Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. This new entity, dubbed SCP-001, presented a grim prophecy and an ominous offer. He told the O5 Council that anomalies were leaking into their universe from other realities, and soon the anomalous threat would destroy them all. His offer was to, upon his release, wipe out the rest of the multiverse entirely, leaving only our reality free from anomalous threats. Unsurprisingly, it was O5-1 that was most interested in this offer, so much so that he held a vote and murdered everyone who voted against the decision to release SCP-001. Having built his consensus among the survivors on the council, O5-1 let SCP-001 out. Unsurprisingly, this turned out to be a terrible decision, as one of his first acts upon being freed was to kill the members of the O5 Council that had just voted to release 001, saying that they themselves were anomalous and needed to be purged to atone for their past sins. The only survivor was a member of the council who abstained from the vote, who was able to recontain SCP-001 inside the Pietrical Fontaine array, for now. Once again, the thematic connections to the rest of the Ouroboros cycle is clear. We have a world-ending anomaly held off, but only temporarily, buying time before the cycle inevitably continues. We have the Foundation abusing its power and signing off on the death of countless people in other dimensions. And, of course, the O5 Council stepped out of their bounds and actively warped reality, just like they had with the children before. Their chickens truly come home to roost, though, in the final part of the cycle. Appropriately named The Way It Ends, this piece chronicles the story of Calvin Lucien and the Kill Squad, an elite group of 4 Chaos Insurgency soldiers with one goal: assassinating the entire O5 Council, 13 of the most powerful people in the world. Why? Because they've been messing with reality itself time and time again, and it's getting to the point that their selfish meddling could finally destroy everything. And given that we've already seen it happen with the children and the entity that Dr. Calvin Desmet became, it's hard to disagree with them. What follows is one of the longest and most complicated tales in all of the Foundation, as the Kill Squad systematically encounters and kills each insane, anomalous member of the O5 Council. In order to do this, they need to make deals with death itself, fight giant serpents, cross dimensions, deal with SCP-610 and SCP-682 containment breaches, and go toe-to-toe with Samsara, arguably the Foundation's deadliest mobile task force. A number of other insane things happen along the way, like O5-1 murdering the Gate Guardian with the Scranton Reality Anchor, and the Black Queen, the most prominent member of the Serpent's Hand, helping our heroes defeat more Overseers. In the end, Calvin Lucien, despite losing almost everything, reigns victorious in the final battle. Using the Spear of the Non-Believer, a weapon so powerful it can kill gods, Calvin managed to finally kill the top member of the Overseers, O5-1. With the O5 Council destroyed, Calvin set about completing his final task, destroying the entire SCP Foundation, but that didn't happen. Instead, he was contacted by a mysterious and immensely powerful being known as the Administrator, who gave him some frightening news. He'd just been hired by the SCP Foundation to be their new O5-1. This was where our last video on the Ouroboros series left us. What happens next, you may ask? How does Calvin respond to this offer he seemingly can't refuse? In this case, it seems that the Administrator, of being so completely tied to the nature of the Foundation itself, is SCP-001. And while it seemed that the Overseers were mad with power, they were actually always there to keep the Administrator in check. Aaron Siegler, the O5-1 that Calvin had just killed, was doing the exact same thing Calvin was doing when he became O5-1, trying to destroy the Foundation. But the Foundation and the Administrator cannot be beaten. They can only be joined. And that's exactly what Calvin did, becoming the new O5-1, turning his back on the Chaos Insurgency, and rebuilding the rest of the Council and the Foundation in his own image. Insurgency members who were once his allies vowed revenge for this betrayal, perhaps suggesting that history would go on to repeat itself once more in the future. Because at the end of the day, that's what the Ouroboros Cycle really is. The reoccurring threat and the changing of the guards that accompanies it. There will always be a Foundation. There will always be an Administrator. There will always be an O5 Council. Nothing starts, nothing ends. All that ever changes are the names and faces involved. Whether it's Calvin Lucien or Aaron Siegler, the wheel keeps turning. The snake devours its own tail. The Ouroboros Cycle is, and forever will be, eternal. Now go check out our full piece-by-piece breakdown on the Ouroboros Cycle, starting with SCP-001 The Children, and then check out SCP-5000Y The Full Story Compilation, just in case we haven't blown your mind enough for one day.